Saw this question recently. Is it better to have a 401k or a high yield savings account? What a bizarre question, but I'm going to answer it from a few different angles. I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Yeah, saw this question recently as a headline. I'm assuming it's not one that you've asked yourself. Maybe the author even just drafted this as clickbait, like, oh, we're going to get someone. Because I read the article and it wasn't helpful. And the question is it better to have a 401k or a high yield savings account? You know you need both. You need both. Those are two different tools in your financial life. And so it's sort of like playing out the analogy. Is it better to have a hammer or a screwdriver? Well, you need both, right? And also taking it to finances, is it better to get your taxes done or to insure your car? You need both, right? So this is a trick question. Now, I wanted to expand it and look at it from a couple helpful angles here, but you know you need both. Your 401k, that's a tax sheltered savings account for your long-term growth, for your long-term financial future. And versus, in contrast, to a high yield savings account, which is a short-term financial instrument. Okay, so if you're looking at, well, I need to save up for my long-term and I want to do so in a tax sheltered and tax advantaged way, and I could even get some company match dollars by doing it, you're going to be saving into your 401k. That's for that long-term and growth-oriented sort of perspective and purpose. Versus a high-yield savings, which is, hey, I've got the need to save up some dollars for either short-term goals or for an emergency, right? So the unknown. Well, that's the high-yield savings account. So the answer is you need both very clearly, and I wouldn't compare and contrast these two different things because they're both essential to a well-balanced financial life. So why even talk about it? Well, there's a couple angles, helpful angles, that maybe we could approach this question. First, we'll start early in your career. You've got limited resources, we all do, and you're just getting started. Is it better to begin saving in your 401k or better to build up cash in a high yield money market, a high yield savings account? This is a fantastic question. Where do you start as you're trying to build your financial house? Well, again, with that analogy, you start with the foundation. And guys, the foundation is having the right approach and system for managing your cash flow. You've heard us talk about the 3 bank account system several times, and absolutely that when you're just getting started, or if you don't have it set up right now, that's the foundation of your financial house. Hard to build something that's going to withstand storms and long-term threats if you don't have a solid foundation. So using a high yield savings to both save up for short-term goals, known upcoming expenses, that'd be your delayed spending account. Yeah, you're going to want to use a high yield savings for that. But then also saving up for emergencies, a financial curveball that is inevitable. Is it going to cause you to go turn to credit cards or make some other rough or disappointing, frustrating financial decision? No, you want to rely on cash, so building up that emergency fund. So therefore, early in your career, the priority is on building up some resources and getting that high yield savings account to the right level. Where I would argue is while that is prudent, I wouldn't ignore the 401k. You should at least be saving up enough to get the full company match, and ideally, you're figuring out a way to do both. Saving a sustainable amount, your long-term goal amount, 10%, 15% is what we recommend towards your 401k, but then also have the resources to be setting money aside in that bucket number 2 for known upcoming expenses and for future financial emergencies. All right, now shifting gears to later in your career. This is a second angle to take this question, hopefully in a more helpful way. Would it ever be prudent to invest in a high yield savings account within your 401k. Oftentimes when we think of high yield savings account, we think Capital One, or we think Marcus, or something like that, an online savings account. Well, within your 401k, you likely have stable value or have some other sort of cash or money market that's probably paying a competitive interest rate as well. So then the question is, should you ever use a high yield savings within your 401k? And that answer is yes, but not for the emotional reason of jumping in, jumping out, jumping in, jumping out. That is oftentimes, even if you timed it right once, it's almost impossible to time it right twice, and you need to be right twice in order to be right, period. If you're investing in your 401k, we all are hardwired with this loss aversion. We just really dislike declines. The emotions are stronger on a decline than they are on the gain. So we feel worse. We feel stronger by a 10% decline than a 10% gain. Okay, so we're hardwired for loss aversion. That makes us really, sets us up to be not that great investors naturally, right? And so you might be tempted to say, uh-oh, market's going down. I see a lot of scary headlines. I'm gonna move within my 401k. I'm gonna move everything to the high yield savings, to the money market. And then once things are safer, I'll move it back. I wouldn't use the money market that way inside your 401k, but instead, as you're approaching retirement and you start building that personal pension plan, you start looking and saying, well, how am I going to take this wealth accumulation tool, my 401k, and start sort of climbing down the mountain, starting to use it to withdraw dollars from and replace your paycheck? Well, in doing so, you should look and compartmentalize that 401k or your entire investment portfolio into your time horizon. When are you going to need the money? And as you get closer to retirement, the money that you're going to need for the first 2 to 3 years of retirement, you should have in short-term types of investments, because they are, by that time, by the time you retire, that's a short-term need, right? Then you need the dollars within a year, 2 years, 3 years. And those dollars are likely prudent to have in that high yield savings or those money markets, right? And so a lot of times people make the mistake as they get close to retirement, I need to go risk off with the whole thing, not realizing that typically retirement's going to be 2, if not 3 decades long. So still a long time horizon. A better approach, a more prudent approach, is to identify how much of the money within that entire account is truly short-term, and make sure that those dollars are positioned in short-term instruments like a money market. And the rest of the dollars, typically, I'll just kind of continue with the personal pension plan. Then you find out another 5 to 6 years or so, 3, 5, 6 years, something like that, in that range, in intermediate investments, a mixture of stocks and bonds, or maybe some other income producing investments. And then all of the other dollars that you're not going to need for 8, 10 years down the road, those should be invested in a more aggressive mix, maybe 80% stock, 20% bond, whatever is comfortable for you. So there you have it. You know that you can't compare and contrast a 401k versus a high yield savings account. You need both. And depending on what stage in life, you might have a different emphasis on each of those. So work with your certified financial planner to apply that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one of my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.